Adrian.
Gerald, how you going?
Yeah, how are you going?
Yeah, not too bad, brother.
Mate, before we just jumped on here, you just told me something that I was totally surprised about. You said it's very different out here now than what it was back in 2013 about the water levels here.
Yep.
So if I'm looking, and everyone can see that, they're looking at the boats behind me.
Yep.
What was going on at 2013?
In the floods in January 2013, we would have been about 6 metres underwater.
So, okay, what's behind me? There's a power pole or there's something behind me, and there's some trees and boats and stuff. We're talking 6 metres.
Yep, well over the mast of that boat behind you there.
No way.
Yeah.
So that's 2013, so I'm thinking, because we had the Brisbane floods, I think, in, must have been around the same time, 2000. Oh, look, there's people coming on. Got turn it all down, mate. Jesus. That's what happens when I don't have a producer coming on here doing the stuff he's supposed to do. Oh, now I've got double noise coming on. Oh, Jesus, shut up, will you? Sorry, everyone.
You shanked it already.
There we go. I think that's better. Yeah, I've got to get a new producer. I think he's asleep. So that's why I'm going to have to do everything myself now. So sorry, people, if you see me looking down, it's because I want to show you the top of my bald head. Mate, I wanted to have a chat to you because I thought it was a good idea that, you know, when John said you're up in Bundaberg, have a chat to Paul and Adrian. So I chatted with Paul yesterday. Interesting story, incredible story. One of the first questions I asked him, I said, what's your earliest memory of life? I won't take you that far back, but I want to take you maybe to your teenage years.
Yeah,
so
right.
Tell me about what it was like going to school where you were. And probably before that, you're not from here, are you?
No, mate. At the moment, I'm living about an hour away.
Okay.
Up in the hills.
Yeah.
Away from all the people, which is kind of nice.
So when you say in the hills, it's like, I know
up past Gingin, yeah.
Yeah.
So west of Gingin.
Okay. So what was it like growing up as a teenager in your school years?
Wow, it was pretty interesting because at the age of 10, Mum decided that I'd be better off looked after by the state. Mm-hmm. And so it was a lot of different schools and foster parents and stuff like that. I think about 13 schools all up.
Okay. 13 schools?
Yes. Yeah.
So you got shoved from pillar to post?
Yeah, it was pretty exciting.
But what was the reason for that? Like if you think about why people go to school.
Look, one of the reasons that I had to leave our mum's place, or she got rid of me, was she'd been badly injured in a car accident, but her partner was incredibly abusive.
Right.
You know, rape, torture, the whole 9 yards for about 5 years straight.
Yeah.
So it was good to get a break from that.
Okay.
But naturally enough, I wasn't particularly sociable. So,
yeah, that's pretty understandable. So let me just go back. So you went. How many foster homes did you go into?
About 7 different ones.
Yeah. What was the first one like compared to what was the last one like? And what age were you going into the foster home?
Yeah, so originally I ended up in an institutional type home in Brisbane, where it was just staff and a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
And it was pretty full on, like some of the stuff that went on was a bit nuts.
Yeah.
Some of the staff thought it was fun that 5 kids, 3 plates of food, fight for it, see who gets it.
Yeah. Tell me, you fought your way through, did you?
I didn't go to bed hungry very often. But and then the foster parents and went around to various ones of those, and to be honest, I was a pretty difficult kid.
Yeah. Describe difficult to me. I've met some difficult people, but describe difficult to me.
Oh, very angry.
Yeah.
And ridiculously sort of strong at that age, because one of the things that Mum's partner liked to do was make bets with people about how many push-ups or chin-ups or whatever I could do,
Yeah.
It wasn't unusual to have to just drop and do 100 push-ups.
Yeah.
For money, or 50 chin-ups or whatever.
Yeah.
So I was fairly small as a kid.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that made school interesting. I didn't really take a backward step.
Yeah. Because when you say small, I mean, you're talking in stature, like you're about 6 foot, aren't you?
About 5'10".
Okay.
But
must be those high heels you're wearing, because we were about the same size when.
But yeah, school. I was literally one of the smallest kids in the class.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right through till about year 10.
Okay, and then you sprouted.
I did.
Yeah.
I was 49 kilos at the start of year 10
No way.
and 79 at the end of year 10.
No way.
I'd grown 6
No way.
inches.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's what happens. So was your teenage years for you memorable in an exciting, cool way, or was it memorable in a distressing way?
No, look, there are parts that were good and parts that were bad.
Yeah.
But the bad never really compared to what I'd come from in my younger years. So, you know, when you've got that to compare it to, things don't always seem so bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and the good stuff, the last foster parent that I was with, he was amazing.
Yeah.
And got heavily involved in boys' brigade, so I got to go abseiling and snorkeling and all sorts of crazy shit all over the place, And he worked hard with me. I was still a rat bag, but he persevered a fair bit.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite childhood memory? And let's just still stick in that adolescence period. So you're kind of like you're still in teenage years, maybe over the age of 11. Favourite memory?
Do you know, none of them really stand out. There's probably meeting my dad at 16.
Yeah. Your real dad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was interesting.
Why is that?
Completely different personality to what I expected. And the first couple of attempted meetings didn't work out.
Yeah.
His car broke down a couple of times. So I'd be standing at the Strathpine railway station waiting for this guy to appear with all these hopes pinned on meeting Dad. And then, I'd get an excuse.
Yeah.
And it took a bit to get over it, but eventually I sort of met him and we met up and I went to live with him for a while.
Okay. How old were you then?
16.
16? Yep. And so you lived with him for how long?
Till I was about 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
What happened after that?
I just moved out on my own and living places. We had a bit of a Barney and he decided I shouldn't live there anymore.
No, we don't have Barneys with our parents, do we? That doesn't happen. What was it over? Was it over something just kind of ridiculous now when you look back at it?
Yeah, I'd been fiberglassing a bunch of rust in his panel van.
Okay.
And one of it wasn't done the way he would have liked or as fast as he would have liked.
Yeah.
And I told him he should probably get downstairs and do it himself if he's got an issue with it.
It's a good way to do it, yeah. Yeah, if you don't like the way that I do the fiberglassing, you can go and do it yourself. And
pretty much. He said, right, out on the front lawn, we'll sort this out. I said, let's do it.
Really?
Yeah.
You had a biffo?
No, he backed off.
Oh, right.
Because at the time I'd been doing martial arts for a few years and was fairly capable.
What was your discipline in martial arts? Karate?
Shotokan karate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you make any belts after white?
Yeah, no, I got all the way to black.
You did?
Yeah,
do you still keep it up now?
Eventually. No, not at the moment.
No, okay.
Pretty serious spinal issues at the moment.
Okay. Yeah.
But good times.
Yeah, good times. Did you go to uni or college, do a trade or anything?
No, none of that. So when I met Dad, I sort of started year 11 and went to Harvey Bay and got in there. But Dad was a serial entrepreneur.
So he wasn't doing much?
No, he was always flat out.
Yeah.
And he had these great ideas for businesses, like home-delivered advertising for every business in town.
Sounds good.
That bought advertising, We used to make and sell pickled onions and travel all over the place selling those, and they were great. People loved them.
Yeah.
But he didn't like paying bills. So these great businesses would take off and the money would get spent and then the phone calls would start. So we'd find a new supplier for whatever. And
then you had to leave town, sort of, kind of.
Well, not really, because everything was sort of delivered. Harvey Bay's pretty remote.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of suppliers in town there.
Yeah.
So he was sort of a lovable rogue,
Yeah.
Once you
hate him.
Once you take him at face value, he was pretty good.
Yeah.
No, he passed a long time ago.
Sorry to hear that, mate.
Yeah. About the age I am now, actually.
Oh, right. So I'm guessing you're about 43, 44.
Flattery will get you nowhere.
I do. I try and do my best. I think yesterday with Paul, I said, what, you were about 16 or something? Don't know, mate. I'm 50.
A few more than that.
Yeah. It's interesting. So you didn't do uni and you didn't do college. So how did you get by? So what was your thing? So
being able to pick up new skills very, very quickly. I spent a few years working early on in the labour hire industry, industrial temping and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Get a phone call in the morning, go to a new place, do a new job for someone that hadn't turned up for the day.
Yep.
And go home.
Yep.
And it worked out pretty well because it could be anywhere from, sort of 5 to 11 shifts a week.
Yeah.
You might go from one shift straight to another one,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And occasionally 3 in a row. I'm sure workplace health and safety, you'd have something to say about that now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Geez, that time's changed, eh?
But good
Since
lifestyle.
Then. Yeah. And all around the same area where you are now, like in outside.
No, that was still down in Brisbane.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a couple of those labour hire jobs, they wanted to keep me.
Yeah.
So it turned into permanent work.
Yeah. And then you, when did you decide to move back here?
So the next step from there was Emerald. My best mate and I decided to go looking for sapphires west of Emerald at a little place called Rubyvale.
Rubyvale, looking for emeralds.
Sapphires.
Oh, sapphires. Yeah. Oh, well, in Emerald, looking for sapphires
Emerald,
in Rubyvale. Yeah.
So we rented a place up there and we were renovating in exchange for rent and whatnot, and started hunting for rocks because I'd been doing that since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And I learned how to cut stones.
Okay.
And ended up starting to do that for a living.
So you're a bit of a stone cutter. So you learn, that's not a trade though, is it? That's just a learning by...
Not in Australia, no.
No. So you must have had a mentor or someone who taught you how to do all that?
So there was a local guy, Max, who was running like a TAFE course. And you get a certificate and whatnot. And he sort of said to me pretty early on, he said, mate, you're pretty good at this. You ever thought about doing it for a living?
And you went, I do now.
Well, no, that was always my goal, funnily enough. I'd always wanted to get into that.
Yeah.
So, going up there was sort of chasing a dream.
Yeah.
My best mate and I. And ended up meeting a local girl and getting married.
Still married?
No.
Ooh, you say that with conviction. It's like, you're kidding, mate. I'm one of those, what do they call it? The, I don't know. I forget the terminology. That's, men going their own way.
MGTOW, yeah.
The MGTOW, is that what it is?
Yeah. I think these days I'm much more balanced and certainly do things that are more in line with my values. I don't get pushed around so much.
I don't want to push you around. I don't want to miss that period between the 20s and today. There's a lot of time that's been, that's, what's the old saying, a lot of water under that bridge. So take me back to a point where things weren't going the way that you wanted them to go, and then your thinking and your processes in your head just started to shift and change. What was the first recollection or memory of things not going the way you wanted it to go?
Yeah, probably while I was still in Emerald. I was there for about 11 years. Ran a karate club there and trained a whole bunch of people and whatnot. Worked security, did gem cutting and whatnot. Basically 2 jobs, 2 full-time jobs at once.
Yeah.
And ended up with a mine site security job that was 14 and a half hours on shift with an hour's drive each way.
Yeah.
And that was taking a toll. I was getting pretty tired, after a couple of years of that. And then we moved from Emerald down here to Gingin. The kids were young. The eldest of my daughters had just hit grade 1. And we wanted a nice, quiet little place out in the bush, where the kids could learn how to live on a farm and go to a nice, quiet country school, where we didn't have to worry about them every 2 minutes.
Yep.
And so that part worked out pretty well. But I noticed the relationship by that time had really started to deteriorate.
With the kids' relationship or with the wife?
No, with the wife.
Yep.
I didn't find out until much later, sort of, what was going on and the pattern. But it was a case of, one day you'd be doing something, it was the best thing ever, and the next day doing the same thing would get you just screamed at. And so you're always sort of on eggshells, And then you see that happen to your kids, and it's like, okay. So, and then you find out, she's cheating on you and all the usual stuff, So you start to go, okay, what's going on here? And then, so right, I've had enough of this. And then, you lovey-dovey and treated nicely and all that sort of stuff, and reel you back in, and then once you're on the hook again, bam, you get smashed down to nothing.
So it was a bit of a toxic cycle.
Yeah, and it got longer and longer each time. You know, it took longer and longer to reel me in, until eventually I realised that I was going to lose everything. You know, everything I'd worked for, possibly even, you know, custody of my kids and everything else. But I couldn't live with what was going on, you know. And of course, there's very little assistance for guys in that situation. You know.
Still is.
Well, there's practically nothing, you know. You know, they get a cop a flog, call the cops and get arrested.
Yeah.
You know, and they get dragged out of their own house and they're homeless and haven't lifted a finger, you know. But I didn't cop too much physical stuff because she learnt early on that hitting me just hurt.
Yeah.
She hurt herself. But the day I left was when she punched one of my daughters, and I said, do that again and I'll drag you to the cop shop myself.
Right.
We're done.
Did she do it again?
No.
Right.
No. And so we split up, and I lived in a shed at the front of my property, about half a K from the house for a while, until that became sort of untenable, and you know, she wanted the house sold and all this other stuff, so we had to do that. And then once we had our own places, it was 50-50 with the kids. And then my oldest daughter wanted to live with me full time, and because they were older, they had a fair say in that, you know. We knew if it had gone to court, you know, they would have been able to choose what they wanted to do. So she was smart enough not to drag it through the courts. But if she had, I was screwed because I had no money. Over the years during the relationship, she'd made sure that there was never any money left for anything. You know, so it was always, I need to do this for the kids, you know, and whatnot. So when I left, I had to take out a loan just to move house, you know, and it was pretty full on.
How dark did it get for you after that period? Because if you think about, say we talk about some relationships, they break up, they break down. There were kids involved in here, which was a major stress for you. If there were no kids involved, it'd be a bit different, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, be totally different. But kids are involved. And so, of course, you get to this point where you start to lose a grip on the reality of, wow, I'm going to need to choose between my mental health and protecting my children and, you know, keeping them away from danger. So talk to me now a little bit later on. The split happened. You're still living in the front part of the property. She wants the house sold. You eventually sold the house.
Yeah, we did.
What happened after that?
Well, naturally, I didn't end up with anything out of the sale or any furniture or anything else apart from what was in my little shed up the front. But yeah, I went and rented a place and you know, had the kids week about. So that was all right. But at the whole time, you're sort of coming to grips with, you know, you're a failure as a husband, you're a failure as a dad, and all these other things, you know, as a provider, and all these other roles that we sort of take on throughout our lives. You know, being an older guy, we grow up with that expectation that, you know, we will be the provider and we will be the dad, and you know, we will be the husband and do whatever it takes to make it work. You know, happy wife, happy life, and all that bullshit. So. And you find out much later on that it takes two to tango, you know.
Do you have, we'll get back to the darkness of the story, but do you have today resentment for women?
No, not at all. I have resentment for women that try to game the system, you know, feminists and the like. That, you know, try to manipulate conversation with shaming language and other stuff like that. But by and large, women are great. You know, I have many very good female friends, you know, that we get along great. And I have deep respect for them and my daughters, you know. So not everyone's the same. And no one else is my ex-wife. She's her own kettle of fish. Even with the girls, the whole time it was, well, you know, maintain contact with your mum because she's your mum. You know.
You never want to take that away.
No.
You don't want kids not having contact with their father, and you don't want kids having no contact with their mother.
Well, see, I'd grown up without a mum.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that for my girls.
Yeah.
You know. So I made sure that, you know, they could still keep in contact as much as they wanted to.
Yeah.
Anytime they wanted to go, great. I just had to minimise my contact with her. You know, and had blocked on everything. You know, while it was all during the breakup, it was pretty toxic. So all emails had to be, I CC'd in a mutual friend. You know, so that it would tend to keep it a little bit more civil.
Was that court ordered? That you had to
no,
do that? No, that was just an arrangement you had. So you just knew that you CYA covering your ass.
Well, not even an arrangement. I just said this is what's happening.
Right.
And any email that I get from you and reply will go through. It will be CC'd. And it wasn't a blind carbon copy. It was up front. You know. Yeah. And that tended to keep a lot of the threats and the other stuff out of the emails that came back.
Yeah.
So
I'm sitting here talking to you, and you're very calm, scarily calm, and very articulate in describing certain situations. Has it always been like this?
No, I haven't always been calm. But as I've gotten older, and especially since I started doing the Marcus Mission stuff, funnily enough, I've learnt a bit more in the way of acceptance. And I did a lot of listening to a guy called Alan Watts, who's a Taoist disciple. And a lot of what he says makes sense, you know. There's no point getting too excited about things that you can't change, you know. So
circle of influence and circle of control, all that sort of stuff. You only can do what you can got control of.
Well, you know, like I walked into the pub the other day, and the barman and one of the guys was having an argument about the glass half full, glass half empty. I said, right, who's right? Said, it doesn't matter. I've walked in, there's half a glass of water.
It's interesting.
I don't know if it started out full and is now half empty, and I don't know if you've only poured half in and it's now half full. Yeah. But what I see is half a glass of water.
You see what you want to know what I see? You got the wrong size glass. That's what I would have said. Mate, you got the wrong size glass.
Well, it was good because I disappointed both of them at once.
That's right. Yeah, no one's right. And they said, and that's the tough part. I mean, you're going to have some people who will argue, you know, to the death. Well, not that quite, but they're going to argue their point because they know they're going to be right. Oh, mate, can't you see it's glass up? Whatever it is, anyway. So, I guess in that instance, there, you've not always been calm, but you've always seemed to. I don't know, I've just met you today. Like, we met half an hour ago, like 10 minutes before we put the stream on. And there's a certain part of you that says to me, maybe this came from maybe your ancestors. And when I say ancestors, I'm just going to maybe your grandfather. Now, your grandfather told me that your grandfather was one of 22 children.
Yeah, he was. In England.
Yeah. Okay, so your descendants, what we're coming from, is that you got half of the English blood on you, and then the other half is coming from where? Where's the other part?
Germany.
Germany. Yeah. Okay.
Which was interesting when Dad brought home a German girl.
Yeah.
Because both of my grandparents had fought in the Second World War.
There you go.
Opposite sides.
Opposite sides. Yeah, I can relate to that. I can totally relate to that. So we're still in our 20s. You've now moved out of home. You're now renting a place. You got your kids seeing you on every second week or every time.
No, I'm now in my.
You're now in your 30s. Okay.
Yeah.
Now you're in your 30s. You've got your own place. You're sitting large. You've got a good flat screen TV. No. Okay. You've got
TV went with her, and I never replaced it.
To the day?
I still do not own a TV.
You don't have a TV?
No.
You've got a laptop, though, or phone or stuff.
I've got a computer at home that I use for work stuff.
You don't watch any TV? No. Wow. That is great.
Not even streaming services.
No.
None of
no Netflix, no Stan. You don't even know what I'm talking about because you don't know.
Oh, I know, because the kids have got it themselves. They're all like doing their own thing. You know?
Yeah. Well, they're all a bit older now, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're looking after themselves.
I'll give you the password, Dad.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you don't understand. I'm not interested.
Yeah. And not only that they're going to give you the Netflix password, but you know Netflix now has come up with this you're not allowed to share your passwords.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
I'm sure people will find a way around it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's always going to be. So you're in your 30s, and you're not at Marcus Mission yet, but you're slowly starting to feel that
Well,
what work are you doing now?
By the time my marriage ended, I was in my 40s.
Yeah.
You know, it was a bit of a journey to get to there.
Okay.
I was 46.
Yep.
On the date of the divorce.
Yep. All right. And then what happened after that?
Well, there'd been a few things happening sort of in the lead up to that. In 2012, the eldest of my sisters took her life. She'd been diagnosed with sarcoidosis. And
I don't know what that is.
It's an autoimmune disorder.
Yep.
And a pretty brutal one.
Yep.
And she couldn't see a way out. And she decided to take her own life before her kids got older and would remember her was her logic.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, she made several attempts, and each time she would call me so that she had a friendly voice to talk to.
Yeah.
As she, hopefully in her mind, passed away, you know.
Yeah.
But I wasn't a fan of that idea, so I kept trying to intervene as best I could.
Yeah.
Unsuccessfully.
Yeah.
So.
I think when I hear stuff like that, it's kind of like, you know, the memory triggers a lot of, you know, different responses. And I'm just thinking the time that you would have gone through there must have been absolutely gut-wrenching, horrific. You know, I got no understanding because I've never had a friend or a colleague that's close to me take their life. And having your sibling, having your sister take a life, what did that do to you?
Well, I'd only known her for about 5 years.
Yeah.
And we were very similar. You know, she was a pretty hard nut to crack.
Mm.
She was in the counter-terrorism squad of the AFP for a while.
Yeah.
And worked as a bouncer doing various things.
Yeah.
And just a very capable, you know, no-nonsense sort of girl with a wicked sense of humour.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, we bonded, and it was gut-wrenching.
Yeah.
And of course, you go through the whole thing of, oh, you know, what could I have done? You know,
what did I miss?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What were the signs? What the hell happened? You go, I can imagine that. That's the sort of thing. And did you have some of that? It's not quite survivor's guilt because you weren't in the same situation, but did you have some of that guilt that you didn't do enough?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to me through that. Like, what did it look like?
Oh, yeah. You know, a lot of what ifs.
Yeah.
You know, 5 times out of 6, I figured out, you know, where she was and managed to get, you know, ambulances and whatnot involved.
Yeah.
But that just made her more and more determined. What I didn't understand and what I didn't know about suicidal ideation is that, you know, once people make that decision, if they've decided, sometimes they're not going to stop until they achieve that end.
Yeah.
You know,
because men are more, you know, without being too crass about it, but men are more successful in suicides. Women attempt it more, but men are more successful. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is that, do you think?
I think because we choose more violent means.
Yeah.
You know, I jokingly refer to us being more results-oriented.
Yeah.
But that is tongue-in-cheek.
No, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
You know, guys tend to just want to get it done. And quite often, funnily enough, causing the least amount of fuss to the people left behind, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Did you start to have any of these thoughts?
Oh, absolutely.
You did?
Yeah, when my marriage ended, I was in a very dark place, you know. Just as I said, I've lost all those different identities that I'd sort of spent my life, you know, working towards: dad, provider, husband, you know, all that stuff. And then everything I'd ever worked for was gone.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the marriage, I wasn't broke. I was, you know, like $80,000 in debt.
Yeah. You're not broke. Yeah, you're just $80,000. So that's a good way of looking at it, isn't it? Or not so much of a good way.
Yeah. But the money thing's, it's just one of those things. You can always make more. The hardest thing was the process that had got me to that was chipping away at my self-worth day in, day out for 22 years until I just felt like I didn't really. I was more of a burden on the world than an asset to it. You know, and so the only logical thing to do would be to remove myself from it. You know, but I had an obligation to my kids, you know, to get them on their own 2 feet and established, you know, in their own lives. You know, I wanted to make sure that they were right before I left. So I had my plan and my location and everything sorted out. I didn't have a firm date, but I had a fair idea of sort of, you know, when I was going to do this. And before that happened, a friend of mine put me onto a suicide prevention workshop called Assist, and it was a 2-day thing. And the first day was, you know, classroom type stuff, and the second day was role plays. And it was very interesting to have someone sort of being the role of the helper, that, you know, trying to get you out of a crisis when you are actually suicidal.
So you were playing the role of the helper.
Oh, well, you swap. Yeah.
All right. So it's like we're going to role play. You're going to be the helper, and I'm going to be suicidal.
Yeah.
And then you're going to help me, knowing that you were suicidal.
Yeah, because part of me still wanted to sort of make amends for my sister.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want someone else to go through that sort of pain.
Yeah.
You know, sort of every year on the anniversary, and you know, for a few days either side, I was a wreck. You know, I'd get the kids to school, and then just go curl up in a ball. You know, until 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Get up. Make sure the kids had tucker and whatnot. And each year it got a little bit easier. You know, but around that, probably about 6 months after that workshop, someone put me onto Marcus Mission here in Bundy. And so I went along, I think it was to about the second workshop. And the stuff that I was talking about just made good sense, you know. And the people were amazing. John really struck a chord, you know.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people can relate to John. It's incredible, isn't it? Don't know what it is about him. I'm still trying to work him out. I've known him for like 25 years. I'm still trying to work him out. He's like an enigma. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you know, he told me his story with his nephew, and that sort of held parallels for me with me and my sister. And you know, at the time, I think I was also doing lifeline training. Yep. And he tells me, you know, he'd been doing lifeline for 20 years.
I know, 20 years.
Yeah.
I know.
And at the same time, I'd actually changed the way I was eating. So I'd stopped eating a lot of carbohydrates, and definitely no flour, sugar, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And discovered accidentally that eating white flour especially really wrecked my mental health.
What?
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I was seeing a girl at the time, and she made pancakes for breakfast one morning, and 20 minutes later I was curled up in a ball on the floor bawling my eyes out.
What? It was white flour, so like white bread and pancakes and...
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
Wow.
That was it happened previously, but I didn't make the link.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's throwing me. That's now thinking. Now I'm having a lot of white flour. Now I'm thinking why I could be quite sarcastic sometimes. Maybe that's what it is.
And it did make a huge difference. But what it was take the edge off the worst of time. You know, got so low when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I didn't, you know, get particularly, you know, more energetic, but I just that everything was a bit more manageable. And then, of course, that was around the same time that that was probably 6 months before Marcus Mission, but you know, that all tied in together, because then I started to get some of those tools, you know, to help deal with the situations that were running through my head as well.
Yeah. At the time, were you self-medicating?
No.
Okay. You were just getting into white.
Well, see,
white flour.
Dad was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And a high-functioning one.
Right.
So a cask of port and a bottle of scotch a day kind of guy.
Yeah.
But already well and truly, you know, living, destroyed himself that way. And I never really felt that addictive sort of thing either. You know, he was a mad gambler, but I've never had an interest in it. Really had an interest in cigarettes. I don't know. I think I've hit the lottery on that part. Because I know it's a hell of a struggle for a lot of people.
Yeah. So what was your coping mechanism prior to going to Marcus Mission that stopped you from being successful at your suicide ideation?
Well, it was a case of I had a job to do. I had to make sure my kids were okay.
Yep.
And the timing worked out
perfect.
Yeah, just pure luck.
Yep.
But up until that point, it was, you know, get up, drag on your busted armour and face the day, you know.
Yep.
Fight your way through to the end and fall asleep and start again the next day.
John and I talk to a lot of people, you know, like we have these conversations, and every opportunity I can get to talk to people, not only from Marcus Mission, but from, you know, anywhere around the world when I do my own channel. You know, I like to talk to people and get an understanding of where they're coming from and maybe where they're heading. What's the future look like for you? Because it's right now where it sounds good.
Yeah,
life's good.
Yeah.
What's the future look like? What's your plan for the next, you know, 50 years?
Well, I had some good plans sorted out, but they may have to take a bit of a detour. I've had some spinal issues over the years due to a car accident early on in '92, and the damage from that's starting to become far more apparent. Found out a few weeks ago that I broke my back in that incident, and nobody knew about it. So, and that's all healed in not exactly the right places. And as I've gotten older, my discs are getting thinner. I've got bone rubbing on bone and lots of pain, and one of my feet goes numb and all sorts of crazy stuff. So what I can do physically is so I'm in the process of figuring out how the hell I'm going to deal with that. But apart from that, I'd like to do a lot more you know, with regards to the Marcus Mission stuff and just helping guys in general, you know.
It's a good phrase that I hear a lot, you know. I like to help people, you know. I like to help people and get them back on their feet and maybe get them to see, you know, what could be, you know, what has been and what could be. If you were sitting with me and I could be one of the participants at Marcus Mission and you're a mentor, I would look at you and I would say, what makes this guy a mentor? What makes him so good at what he does? You know, why is he sitting there? What's his experience? Because they don't know, do they? Not unless you get into and not unless they ask. But with your thinking process when you're talking to a person who's, you know, obviously struggling with their life, and you know, they might want to self-harm, and they turn up like you did to a Marcus Mission, and do you think that this could be the first day of the rest of your life? What's going through your head when you talk to a bloke that's sitting there with you?
First and foremost, I just want to make sure that they're going to be safe when our time together ends. You know, just make sure that they're not going to follow through on that ideation. You know, how do you know that? Like, do you have like an instinct, gut instinct? What is it? You never know. No, never know for sure. But you talk to them, you know, you find out how far along they are with their plan, and if they've got a plan, if they've got the means, you know, how close they are to having a go at that. You know, for some people, the ideas cross their mind, and yes, I'd like to do it, but that's as far as it's gone. You know, for others, you know, they may have, you know, I won't go into details about how people complete that act, but you know, they may be much further along the path, and in that case, it may be you just sit with them and talk with them and let them tell their story, let them express their pain, and just sit with them in it. You know, one of the things we don't try to do is jump in and fix things and whatnot, and the reason is, at least in my mind, is you're disempowering them if you jump in and try to fix things. What I like to do with them is and say, hey, you know, have you felt like this before? And almost invariably it's like, yeah, great. What did you do then? You know, how did you get through that, you know, that time? You know, what would it look like if you tried to do that again?
Yeah.
You know,
rather than, mate, have you tried to go for a bike ride? Yeah. Mate, have you tried to get up and, you know, have a shave in the morning?
Yeah,
like doing those sort of things. They may have been the things that you would have done, not that you shaved, but they would have been the things that you would have done that doesn't necessarily transfer to anyone else, because everyone's got a different way of dealing and coping with. Yeah, and sometimes we see that a lot with counsellors and psychologists. They try to pass on their wisdom and knowledge by saying, hey, you should give this a go, when that's the total wrong way to do it.
Yeah, I like to have a different approach where I don't have a set plan.
There shouldn't be.
Because if I've got, and that was one of the cool things about the role playing that I did early on at that very first suicide prevention course.
Yeah.
Was when you were trying to work a script and stuff like that, you weren't really listening to the other person. You know, one of the most valuable things I've learned from Marcus Mission and the Lifeline guys was be in the moment and don't preempt it. Listen to them and let them tell you what's going on, and then work with what they've given you, you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes you may ask a question that probes in a different direction.
Yeah.
But then you'll wait for the answer, and there's no real script.
Yeah.
And that was sort of where I sort of parted ways with Lifeline. They tended to be a little bit more scripted.
Yeah.
And they weren't fans of spending 2 hours with someone if they needed it.
No, that's it. It's crazy, isn't it?
But you know, I felt the way that the guys at Marcus and John did things was a much more effective method, especially the mentoring side of things.
Can't
you know,
rush things, can you?
No. Sometimes you've got to if things are desperate, but there's a difference between a crisis situation and what we do at Marcus Mission as well. You know, we talk to the guys when they come out of the MHU and mental health unit and stuff like that. You know, it's funny. It seems to me that the mental health stuff in Australia, it's right, and then they chuck you out and you're on your own. It's like, whoa, hang on a minute. There's not really a lot of follow up. You know, so
it's very little funding too, isn't there?
Very little.
Very little, if any. I mean, I know there's a lot of organisation. You know, there's we could name a whole lot of them, but the main ones that you hear, you know, like the Black Dog or, you know, Lifeline, they get the funding, and yet there's so many different smaller groups, whether it's men's sheds, you know,
men's sheds are fantastic.
Yeah, Marcus Mission, you know, Blokes Help, all that sort of stuff.
Well, a lady that I know, Mary O'Brien, she has a website, Are You Bogged, Mate?
Yeah, that's great.
She penned an amazing piece on that, and she now travels around giving a lot of talks to farmer federations and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So the people are starting to look, but it's all it's not coming from the government. You know, we don't have a minister for men or men's health or anything like that. It's all being driven by volunteers. You know.
Yeah, we've got a minister for diversity, though. We've got a minister for blue hair and purple hair. We won't go into that. We're going to have a big conversation about that.
I'm sure we could.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I won't be dragged into that one.
No, me neither. That's not. Don't say dragged into the same sentence. I think what's really interesting is that there's lots of different ways that people cope. And I was talking today with the group. There was about 60 people in the group. We're just talking about empathy, and a lot of people were understanding. Like I said, what is that? What does empathy mean to you? And they say all the right catchphrases, like put yourself in another person's shoes. Just sit and listen to what they're saying. And then when you do a little activity, and you give that activity, and you say, okay, you know, how do you respond to that? Go into problem solving
straight away.
Straight away, they just go, "What happened, mate?"
Especially us guys.
Especially, well, yeah, it was interesting. It was a good split. But it was really interesting. They go, well, what was happening? You know, what's going on? And especially if I used in this instance, I used a young kid, like a 16-year-old who's having a pretty tough time at school. And a lot of the women would say things like, come here, love, let me make you a sandwich. Just go, okay, that's the answer. If that was the answer to everything. And the word empathy is something that I think everyone could learn and benefit from, which is, like you say, sitting and listening. And one of the things I liked about what you were saying is that it's not scripted. Like, we had 5 minutes before this, didn't we? Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
And I don't like to script anything. You know, I don't like to say to you, mate, these are the set of questions that I have, because I don't know which way it's going to go. And I think the wonderful thing about telling a story is that the intervention of me jumping in there and then saying, oh, but it's got to be better this way, is pointless. And so just sitting and listening, I think, is one of the best things. That, you know, we might have, you know, it could be 60, 70, I don't know how many people are on here at the moment, but all those people could be sitting and listening, and they might want to reach out and ask questions. So are you up for people asking questions if their questions come up? Because I'll just pick up the laptop and just have a read of some of the questions.
Sure.
But I guess help some of the people out who are watching this. Give me an understanding of how empathy really works.
That's a really good question. I don't have a conscious answer for that. I don't know. I just get in tune with the other person, and I seem to feel what they're feeling.
Yeah.
Quite often, you know, to the point of being able to sort of second guess, you know, what they're likely to say and stuff like that. And that's a tricky one too, because you don't want to impose your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
So whenever I feel that, it's like, hey, you know, I'm getting the impression, you know, that this might be the case. Is that correct? So rather than trying to inject myself into it, I find out, you know, where they're at. And the great thing is, even people that are deeply in distress will correct you if you're not on the money, you know. So if you got it wrong, they go, no, you idiot, that's not what I mean at all, you know. Oh, okay. So, you know, and then we can work on...
talk me through it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we can get them to come out. And the process of, you know, helps with that whole engagement with them, you know. I don't like... It's like, are you okay day? Shits me to tears.
Give me fist pump on that, brother. Yeah. Well, I think is great, isn't it? But
you know, it's like, yeah, mate, yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah.
The t-shirt out there, and it's I'm okay, but the okay is in red and it's in the middle of the word broken.
Oh, I've got that t-shirt. Can I correct you?
Yeah.
I'm broken.
Yes.
The okay better, so it's I'm broken, but it's really I'm okay. And I've got a t-shirt. But is there another one, is there?
I think there's different colours. The one I've seen, the okay is in red.
Yeah. T-shirt. It's a great t-shirt, and you're absolutely right. Yeah. So the Are You Okay Day, because you know
people are terrified that you're going to actually go no.
Yeah.
And you can see it in their eyes, you know.
Yeah. What would happen? And I say that to people. What would happen if somebody says, "Are you okay?" and you go, "Actually, no. I'm having really dark thoughts." It's like, "Oh shit. I'll send you to my supervisor." It's horrible. It really is horrible. I know the concept was supposed to be there to check in, but why does it need to be one day a year?
Absolutely.
You know, it's like Earth Day. We'll do that one day a year for 1 hour. What's the point of that? It's just ridiculous. Mate, I heard this interesting statistic, and I brought this up to Paul yesterday, is that since COVID, there's been a massive increase in 85-year-old men, I think 36% increase of 85-year-old and over men who have attempted suicide. Does that surprise you? Since not prior?
No, not at all.
Are you thinking about what happened during COVID? Yeah, like locking people away. That's a great thing to do, isn't it? Isolate people from their families.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest one for me was the term social distancing.
Yeah.
When what they actually meant was physical.
Correct.
And that created a lot of drama. A lot of people just got isolated, you know, family didn't get they used.
Yeah.
And you know, around me in different other families and people just stopped interacting with other people because of this social distancing stuck in their head rather than physical distancing.
Yeah.
You know, sure, at the beginning I took it all, you know, shit, it's like a bad thing.
Yeah.
chuck a mask on. If you want to interact with people, great.
Yep. Yep.
You know, but when you're home or in your car on your own, pop it off and you know, live your best life.
Yeah.
When things started to get forced on us, especially the jabs, and people were losing and stuff like that, in the face of the evidence that what they were doing was working, that
started to have an impact.
That really turned me off.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just another layer. I see one of the things humans do. Monkeys. Did John ever talk about Harlow's monkeys?
Yes.
Do you remember what that was about?
Yeah, a bunch of monkeys in a cage.
Yeah.
And hang a bunch of bananas from the roof and put a ladder there. And whenever a monkey goes up to grab a banana, they hose the crap out of a fire hose. And then after a while, they introduce a monkey that's in the group, and they see the bananas and go up to get it, but the other monkeys will grab them and drag them down because they don't want to get hosed. And before that, on the ladder, and eventually, and not have to hose any. The minute the ladder to go up and get a banana, the rest just pile on them, and they've never copped the original punishment. You know, they get conditioned by the group.
Yeah, something new. Understanding monkeys, but I like that.
Oh,
no, I like that.
Oh, okay.
That sounds like that might be.
Oh shit! Sorry.
No, that's all right. But I like that one. Oh, that's why I was thinking, okay, this could be it could be a Harlow's monkeys. I don't know. So my understanding of Harlow's monkeys, and I'll probably get this. I'll probably botch this up because John's watching this and he's going, nah, bloody Adrian was right. My understanding of Harlow's monkeys, you have the monkey, and they starve the monkey.
Yeah.
Right. And they've kept it stuck. And they give it two passages. One passage to its favourite food, bananas and nuts and green and leaves and whatever else it eats and drinks. Okay, that's one passage, but it's starving. But what they also did is they kept the monkey away from any connection, from any physical connection from another monkey.
Okay.
So they isolated it. Yeah, so they just isolated it. But they then put in the other cage, right, the two passages, one for food. They put this old rag doll in the shape of a monkey.
Yeah, wow.
And it was just like filled with wire. But they packed it up with fur of a monkey, and it looked kind of similar to what a monkey would be. And so the experiment was supposed to show, would the monkey who was starving of its nutrients and food, would it go for the food because it wants to eat and survive? Or will the monkey that's been starved of connection, will it go to the comfort? Everyone, even myself, would be thinking, it's hungry. It wants to eat first. And it went straight to connection. And it was the saddest thing to actually see the Harlow monkey cuddle and comfort the straw wire, the string and the wire that had no resemblance to a monkey, but needed that connection.
Oh, I'd never heard of that one.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking that's the Harlow's monkey anyway. We'll go and Google it now. Somebody will Google it and say, no.
We'll hear about it.
Hear about it, yeah, say something. So it then shows that was generation up of the monkey. It's then to isolate people and to keep us away from what they call the social distance. That, hey, you've got a cold, can't mums, father, children, and they're the ones closest to you. It then shows that people start to affect, and especially younger children, who isolate from mates. Oh, we'll give you food, mate. What more do you want? You know, we'll give you food and medicine, and it's what they want. It's the social connection. And so I think this is really part of what Marcus Mission does. It's just that connectivity, getting a whole bunch of blokes together and you just chew the fat.
Absolutely. And it's some of the guys end up making lifelong friends.
It does. You know? Yeah.
It's,
so you've been doing Marcus Mission now for how long?
Nearly 4 years, I think.
Wow.
I think it was in February, so yeah, it's pretty close to 4. And
it's a great little community, isn't it? Like anywhere where there's a community of people where you can get around and talk and chat to people. And there's there's very little structure. I've been to a lot of them. There's very little. You've got your first things in the beginning, you know, you do your briefing, your debriefing, and you talk about a couple of stuff, and then it's just, you know, you're eating a barbecue and you're just chilling and having, you know, good old men talk. We miss that, don't we? Men talk.
Well, it's similar to Men's Shed, you know.
Yeah.
They're amazing the way that people can talk in those.
Yeah.
And it's the same for us.
Yeah, I love that. Not back and, you know, cues and, oh, I better not, because there's somebody around that might be offended. We just talk like we should be, like we're around a campfire, just going out hunting, fishing and gathering nuts and pigs and boars and bringing it home. Something like that.
But yeah, look, people, you can tell when people are comfortable and not. One guy that we had in Bundy, at the end of the first session, he says, oh, you know, I thought this was going to be shit, but it turned out to be brilliant.
Yeah. Hang on, mate. People are just now telling me that my mic's playing up. It's always my mic. Mine. Mate, I'm not a producer. Let me just fix this up. It's because I move too much. Now they'll tell me it's okay. Mate, let's, for the last 15 minutes, I thought, geez, put that back in. Jeez, I'm not a producer. Let's see if we can get with some questions here. People mind are often left in a mental quagmire. Don't know what that refers to. The ones left behind are often in a mental quagmire. Does that mean the non-connection bit? We have to decipher what these...
That might be back towards the suicide thing.
Maybe.
Because I know that the people left behind are in a world of pain.
Yeah. It's a good question, this one. For the government stepping in, do we need more ministers or less?
I'm a very small government kind of guy myself.
Okay. Yeah.
But if they're going to have that system, I think that everybody should be represented. You know.
Have you been watching? Oh, you don't, because you don't get the news. But maybe your kids might have told you about there's a bit of a crisis happening in Northern Territory, in Alice Springs.
Yep.
So back in July, the federal government decided to reintroduce alcohol back into the regional communities, because there was, in some communities in Northern Territory and Queensland, an alcohol ban.
Dry.
Right, a dry town. But back in July, that lifted, and the crisis started to get worse. Now, it's not saying that from July it got worse. This is decades of mishandling, and what the government wants to do is just not throw any money in there, but have the voice so that people can have a voice. But I don't think they've got ears. I don't think the government's listening. Do you think young men, regardless of culture and background and wherever they come from and race, do you think young men in regional towns are struggling?
Mate, I think young men everywhere are struggling, to be honest. I mean, let's face it, you know, every day on the television they're being told that they're, you know, predators just waiting for an opportunity, and men are trash and kill all men. You see it all over social media all the time.
Yeah.
You know, what's a young bloke got to look forward to when he's bombarded with that every day?
Toxic masculinity. Yeah, where, you know, it's our fault. You know, it's men's fault that women are unsafe. You know, and it's
well, that's the one I hear a lot is, you know, it'd be great if women, you know, could walk safely down the street at night. It's like nobody can walk safely down the street at night.
Yeah.
You know, like as a bloke, and not a particularly small one, I still don't do stuff that's going to put me in a perilous situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if I have to, I take precautions that will, you know, give me the best opportunity to come out the other side.
100%. 100%. I'm not going to swim in a shark-infested ocean if I know that there's going to be dangers, or I will protect myself from that. Maybe I'll go on different times. You know, maybe I won't go during feeding time, dawn and dusk, but maybe that's just called sense. You know, that maybe we just know that...
Common sense. Yeah.
Well, is it common, eh? You know, if I want to go for a walk along this boardwalk here, I'm sure it'd be okay at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know. But it's going to be a hell of a lot better than going at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, yeah, we should be able to walk safely anywhere. Anyone should be able to walk safely. But there are, you know, mentally ill people who want to do damage to people, and an opportunity might arise. So, yeah, yeah, the message that young boys get is horrific, you know, and they then have to live with that. Yeah, I don't know if I like all that.
We had schools getting all the boys to stand up and apologise to all the girls, basically for being boys, you know, and that was here in Australia.
Person just wrote here, it says they're replying to another person. They're saying, this is from the Unboiled Frog. She says, I have 3 sons and I worry for their future.
Yep.
Yeah. I wonder what sort of, you see, and kids should be kids regardless of what age. You know, if you're 9 years of age, you should be able to be a kid, ride your bike, scrape your knee, fall off, have a game of cricket, you know, throw stones and do whatever you have to do, because that's what boys do. Okay, that's what we do. We just like rough and tumble. Most. I'm not going to generalize here. Well, I'm kind of generalizing, but I'm not saying everyone likes to throw stones at each other. That's what I like to do. Sorry, Mark, for hitting you in the forehead at the age of 13. It was a good shot, though, right smack on the top of his forehead. But yeah, boys want to do boy stuff, and I think if we start taking that away from them and then controlling them and saying, hey, you can't do that, it's best off that you control your anger. We need a release.
Yeah, I think there's sort of 2 things to consider, though. It's not just that. I think the massive rise in fatherless homes is a massive issue. You know, the role models aren't there. You know.
Can I read this message out here? I'll just bring it up.
Sure.
It says from Carte Postali. It said, we adopted a baby girl whose mother was not an alcoholic, but took 2 drinks during pregnancy, and our daughter's brain was damaged for life. And doctors talk about that all the time. You know, they talk about it. You know, whatever you're putting here and goes into the bloodstream has kind of like got to affect, maybe,
absolutely,
in some ways, that. And what do they call that? Is that called, you know, when a baby's born with alcohol,
like fetal alcohol syndrome?
Fetal alcohol. Sorry, that's what it is.
That tends to be a more sustained,
is it,
sort of thing. 2 drinks you'd have to be pretty unlucky.
I think it was 2 drinks a day.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. That's a very different thing altogether.
Yeah, I think so. Somebody else wrote here, let me just bring this one up. It says, we left our home in California so that our children wouldn't be forced into socially acceptable gender roles. So the big push now, because you don't watch a lot of TV, the big push now is that we allow kids to identify with whatever gender they like. So if you've got a 4-year-old boy and he likes to dress up as a girl, we'll allow him to dress up as a girl. Look, and I don't have a problem with that. But what we'll do...
what you like.
Yeah, absolutely. But what we'll do is that I now see that young boy who's dressing up as a girl, maybe what we should do is give him puberty blockers at an early age so that they don't grow out of it, but they grow into it. And so we damage them. And as this person has written here, maybe we left that because it was socially acceptable that young boy now, who's maybe had some ideas of being Superwoman, it's like, well, he wants to be a woman and he's 4, so let's change his sex.
Yeah,
and that's what's happening.
That's a hard no from me.
That's a hard no, yeah.
I think if people want to make those sort of decisions, they can do it as adults.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think abusing kids is not the answer.
Yeah. Have a listen to this one here. It says, 2 + 2 Cat says, not just gender, but there was a young schoolgirl who identified as a cat. So they installed a litter box in the washroom. You think I'm kidding, don't you? You think
No.
You think I'm making this up?
Social media.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, the problem is, where do you draw the line?
At that.
You know, well,
putting a kitty litter
a bit before that, but
yeah, I know. I draw it probably at the furry and putting a litter like I don't know, man.
I'm a pretty laid back dude, and people,
no shit.
People are going to people, but yeah, like, do you feed them cat food? Like, where does you know? And I think pandering to whims is probably not a great idea.
Teresa just wrote here, Western civilization has declared war on young men.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
Have you seen, I can't think of it now. Okay, let's go back to that. 100% agree. Western civilization has declared war on young men.
Yep.
What are you seeing that makes you say 100%?
If you want to look for a lot of facts and figures, go to the Wiki for Men.
Okay.
That'll open your eyes.
Wiki for Men, okay.
But in general, you know, they're being told every day that they're worthless, and you know, and all this other stuff. We're told, you know, men don't talk, and we're fed all these stereotypes that just aren't true. And when they make comments about men who do bad things, they don't ever phrase it as that person did something bad.
Yeah.
Men do that.
Men.
And when you call them on it, I didn't mean all men.
Yeah.
But you said all men.
Yeah.
And slowly but surely that seeps in over time.
Yeah.
You know, the guys are getting this message day in, day out that you know, there is something inherently wrong with them.
Yeah.
You know, we're looking at a situation where, you know, far less guys go to university now, far less guys graduate, you know, and they're all being pushed away by these ideas. The toxic masculinity thing, being called a misogynist, and all these other things are nothing more than a way of halting the conversation and stopping guys from being heard.
Yeah.
And that's why it's been so successful. The minute a guy tries to speak out, they get howled down with these, you know, with this shaming language.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to see a whole bunch of female creators, especially on social media, standing up in that space. And the stuff they get from people who want the status quo to continue is horrendous. You know, death threats and all sorts of stuff. Their channels being shut down and whatnot. There's a concerted effort to keep the male voice suppressed. Yeah. And it's not a good way to go. You know, we need balance. You know?
And I love it that there are lots of women, you know, who are coming out in favour of standing up for men. They stand up for men. Absolutely. And then you have some people, and it's generally on the left, who just think that men are the scum of the earth. And maybe that's a mental health issue as well. For women to be thinking that men are scum, that's got to be a bit of a mental health issue.
Well, you know, it'd be interesting to see why they think that way.
Yeah.
You know, are they basing that on an experience or
Probably.
One experience?
Yeah.
It's interesting. When I was feeling pretty low and felt, you know, the world was against me, I was reading a book by a fellow called Randy Gage, American multi-level marketing guy. And he was talking about he was shot in the stomach by a drug dealer in Miami, and he's laying in hospital and sort of moaning to his best mate who'd come in to see him, oh, you know, all this terrible stuff happens to me. And he said, well, there's always the same person at the scene of the crime. There's one common denominator, mate. And he was deeply offended by this. Yeah. You know, I think, you know, dads should be teaching their daughters how to choose better men.
Yeah.
And that's not saying that men are bad.
No.
But, you know, we have a choice who we spend time with and who we spend our lives with. Yeah. And what we allow is what people will do. Yeah. You know, we need to set stronger boundaries. Yeah. And not just set boundaries, but we need to enforce them and let people know that we're not going to tolerate being trampled. You know, my daughters are very firm in dealing with others, and not to the point of being mean, but they just won't let themselves be walked all over, you know. And that's what everyone really should be doing. And again, it's that connection. When people are connected and supporting each other, everything goes a lot better. Yeah. The more we get divided, and there's so much stuff around us, they want to divide us on race, religion, you know, gender. Yeah. I mean, why split people in two when you can split them into 74 different factions? You know, and you wonder why all this division is being pushed, especially by the media. Yeah. You know, what we'd like to see at Marcus Mission is connection. Yeah. And what I like to see is connection. You know, my neighbours and I, we all get together and chat on a regular basis and share a meal, and we're building a community that, you know, keeps in touch.
It's a pity you're not watching TV, because I'm hooked onto this social. No, only for one reason. I don't watch TV either. I can tell you that now. But I will tune in once a year for utter trash social experiment TV. Reality called Married at First Sight.
Oh, hell no.
Come on. Now, just hear me out for a sec. Hear me out. I'll give you the benefits of it. There are none. Why I like watching that on a social point of view is to watch women and men who have never met each other at all. So they meet at the altar and they get married. That's the first time that they see them. You hear the women and men both say, so let's go, the woman would say, the guy who I'm marrying is not the type that I would normally go out with. And these women could be 30, 40, 50 years of age. And it makes you think they're 30, 40 or 50 years of age and they're still single, but they keep dating the same person. Yet when they get matched with someone who's totally their opposite, they wonder why. They slowly start to work out that maybe their previous relationships are broken down because they pick the wrong type of man. And the same with the bloke. Maybe it's because they picked the wrong type of woman, because we're attracted to a certain type.
Absolutely.
Right? We are. That's what's, as humans, you know, we're visual creatures. We look at a person and we're attracted to that type. And so when you see this program of a bunch of men and women getting together, and then they start picking on the person who they've just met 24 hours beforehand, and the relationship goes pear-shaped because they don't give each other a chance and either maybe listen to the person and see what values they have, but they're more interested in the appearance that they have. And that's where I think the whole system's failing.
Well, while I don't watch it, it's impossible to not be bombarded with ads for that sort of thing and see it on magazine covers. And it just looks to me like they put a bunch of narcissists together and see what happens. You know, people who would chance a relationship for 15 minutes of fame. At what point is that anything approaching a normal relationship?
Or 2 months worth of fame. It's incredible, you know, and it's it ruins relationships. It ruins profiles of people. It ruins them mentally because they don't, even though this is the 10th year that this has been running, they're still looking at it and saying, I want to be a part of this. Like they have like 10, 15,000 people apply.
It's bread and circuses, mate.
That's it.
That's all it is.
Exactly,
and that's
what it is.
the reason I refuse to watch any of that stuff, because it's a distraction. It's a division. It's to divide us, you know.
Yeah, it totally is. Yep.
Just no interest in that.
Good for you. I'm still watching it tonight. I've got to go soon. I've got to watch it. It's on tonight. One says, those women are most probably basing opinions on what social media tells them. That's
Absolutely.
exactly what you said. Yeah. It's where they get their ideas from. This is how I should look. This is what I should be, how I should behave. And for me to be someone of importance, I need to act this certain way so that I can get the thumbs up and the likes. And I think that's what it's about. And I think social media, there's been some good where social media has come in, you know, like Marcus Mission on social media, Waffles and Whiskey on social media. There's good, but there's also destructive stuff that's happening. And I think the destructive thing is the one that I think we don't have an answer to. You know, we don't.
Well, we do. Connection.
Connection, yeah. Real connection.
Yeah.
Real connection. Somebody was saying the other day,
they get out and meet people.
Well, they jumped on a bus and all they saw was, you know, 50 heads, all heads down, looking at the phone rather than looking at the person next to them saying, you know.
Well, I caught a train to Brisbane the other day for the first time in probably a decade.
Yeah.
And a little old lady sitting next to me was quite chatty and, you know, we had a good talk.
Right.
And she was telling me all about her son who's into computers and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I asked, you know, have you ever heard of ChatGPT?
Yeah.
She's like, oh, what's that?
Oh, yeah.
I said, oh, watch this. And write a 1-paragraph story about a lonely goldfish who finds a friend, and it did that.
Yeah.
And she was amazed. I said, rightio, turn it into a short radio play, which it scripted out.
Beautifully.
Now turn it into a Shakespearean play and a 2-act play, you know, the whole thing.
Yep. Yep.
And it was just nuts. But even though it was using electronics, there was connection.
Yeah. That's incredible, isn't it? But I think the dead giveaway was I was talking to a little old lady.
Yeah.
You know, it's that's where it starts, isn't it? Yeah, that's where it starts.
Well, in my brain, I'm still 20, so anyone older than me looks like a little old lady, you know. There's probably only 8 years in it.
Probably. And going further on that Chat GPT, have you heard of the next thing which I tried to show some people the other day? It's called 11 Labs.
No, not yet.
So 11 Labs is, okay, I'll record your voice for 1 minute.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, you heard that?
Yeah. I didn't realise it was called 11 Labs.
Yeah, it's 11 Labs. So you can go in there, you can put a script in there. I'll record your voice for 1 minute, and then I'll want it to come out in your voice, and it will give me the script beautifully spoken to by Adrian.
But think of like a positive use for that would be having the kids' granddad tell them a story, even though granddad might have passed.
Yes.
You know, there's positive ways to use these things.
Yeah.
And of course, there's incredibly destructive and negative ways to use these things. Yeah. Again, it comes down to the people.
Yeah.
And connected people would tend to do more beneficial things, I think.
Yeah.
And people who are isolated and everything else would tend to not be quite so good with it.
I can tell it's damn noisy out here with all those are they lorikeets?
I couldn't tell you. I can't see one, to be honest, but they sound like them.
They sound, yeah. Says, please, we're trying to have a chat here. All that nature, all that beautiful nature noise that's coming on
get
here.
it off me.
Nature, I want the humming sound of a computer that would come. No. Let's go a couple of more questions if anyone's got any questions, and then we'll slowly start to wrap it up. I've really enjoyed this conversation. You know, you're better than Paul yesterday.
Yeah.
That's what I said to
Let's
Paul.
push that division. That's the way to do it. See if we can crack Mark.
That's what I said to the group today. I said to them, you're the best group I've had today. And they go, oh, thank you. And then they go, all right, I know what you're saying. Linda says, that is the best way to look at it. We have to know what is out there and utilise it the best we can. Yeah, I guess talking about Chat GPT and 11 Labs.
The way I describe it to my friends is it's such a leap in technology.
Yeah.
It would be like the Wright brothers when they first opened their hangar wheeling out a Boeing 747.
Yes.
You know, I firmly believe that sort of by the end of this year, if you're not at least fluent in how to use these things in a regular job, you're going to find yourself a little bit behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, totally. You know, my thinking is also is that we've got all this technology. Have a look at this technology we're setting up here, that we've got cameras facing on me. There's one, and we're using just the phone, you know, to have this technology, and we still haven't landed man on the moon.
You think you're going to catch some fish today or something? Now, I have opinions on this.
Do you?
Yeah, but I won't be discussing
them. Okay, not today. Oh, well, at least you're happy on this flat earth.
It's flat where I'm standing. That's good enough for me.
Good enough for me. Oh, it's a stirrer, isn't it? It's good to stir. Okay, last couple of things. Every technology can be used for good and evil.
Sure.
Yeah, we know that. Yeah. I think every relationship can be made good or evil. And I think it's not about giving 50-50. It's not about that.
It's about giving
100.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what we forget. It's, well, you know, I've given my 50%. Give you yours.
Yeah.
No, it's 100%, isn't it?
It's funny you mention that. Like when I was younger, I spent a bit of time delivering furniture and doing house removals and that sort of stuff, as in moving people from house to house. And as a result, you'd get called upon to help your friends move house.
Yeah.
I used to get a bit bent out of shape that when it was time for me to move house, there was never anyone around. You know.
Funny that.
And then I sat down and thought, you know, I didn't discuss getting anything in return.
Yep.
You know, I just said, yes, I'm going to do it. So really, this is my own fault. You know, why am I looking at this in a transactional way? If I do this, you should do that. And the minute you stop thinking of life as a series of transactions, it becomes I found it became easier. So if someone needed a hand and it was available, great, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I found it easier if I wasn't available to say, oh, look, sorry, man, I've got something on.
Yeah.
And not with any malice.
No.
Just, hey, I can't do that. You know, and take away the transactional nature of these interactions and just go with connection.
It's not a competition.
No.
It's not a chalkboard. It's like,
God, no.
You know, Adrian, I've been 5 times up Bundaberg now.
Fantastic.
I haven't seen you down Brisbane once. Like, chalkboard it up. It's not about that, is it? Because if you want to do it, you'll do it. and there shouldn't be conditions attached to it.
No.
No.
And you shouldn't do things in the hope that somebody else will do something in return.
Yes.
If you want something in return, that's something that you should talk about up front.
Yep.
You know, I think that's where a lot of people come unstuck.
Yeah, I think if you want something in return, buy a dog.
No, look, I think you can have interactions with people where you do something for them, they do something for you.
Yeah.
But it's not something that should be sprung later. It's,
yeah.
Hey, you want me to do this, but I need this done. Are you able to do, can we work together on this?
Yeah.
And if you get that agreement,
great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
If they say, oh, no, I can't do that, you still have the choice of going, oh, no worries, I'll help you anyway. Or, oh, I'm sorry, I was really hoping that, you know, this would turn into something. You look like a bit of a prick, of course, but but you still have the choice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Now, one of the things I speak about in the group here today is that, and you mentioned it here, it's about, you know, getting that agreement. And sometimes with conflict, it's not about managing a conflict. Sometimes it's about managing the agreement. So what was it that you and I agreed upon? Because if you and I have conflict, did we actually have an agreement that what we would both agree to doing, and then we can now manage that agreement? So I just thought what you're just saying there reflects on maybe how a relationship should work. Did we sit down and have an open agreement, like a, what do they call that, a psychological contract, you know, on how we chat to people? Mate, we're going to finish up. I think this has been incredibly useful. I know I'm looking down at the iPad, which is something we just talked about.
Oh, sure, don't look at me when you talk to me.
No, don't look at me. Because I can read two things at once. Last thing is G-Man is usually on at 9 a.m. in Australia. He started at 4:30 today. So they're talking amongst themselves. They don't care anymore. They don't care anymore about us. See, they don't want to talk to us. They want to talk and have connections in the group.
Great. Connection's always good.
Connection's always good. And that's what I love about this small community that we have here. Mate, I've really enjoyed having a chat to you today. And what I like about it is that it's totally unscripted. I just want to have a talk to you. And, you know, we've spoken over the phone over the last couple of days, but that was just purely about
logistics.
You know, logistics, getting here, because you're about 100 Ks out, aren't you?
It's less than 100 Ks, but it's a bit over an hour.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you're right for a lift, because I haven't got a car.
No, I'm good.
You're good.
My daughter let me her car for the day.
Oh, good. Oh, okay.
Mine's broken at the minute.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Broken, but you can actually, I'm okay.
Yep.
All right, mate. I love this conversation.
It's great to meet you.
Thanks very much. And for those people who are watching this, we're about to jump off here. I'm on every morning, as you know, 9:30. No, I don't. 9 o'clock. As I don't even know when I'm on. I don't even know. I'm on every day, 9 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time. Now, I'm not going to be on for the rest of the week. I'm going to take a break. I need a break. I've got work to do, and this was just a great opportunity to have this chat. So I'll see you the next time. As you know, if I'm not on, I am not on. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining. Don't forget, like and subscribe, and we'll see you the next time I'm on. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.